All right, today we are digging into the story of a true garden celebrity, the humble marigold. I mean, this flower has been everywhere, from the ancient floating gardens of the Aztecs all the way to the patriotic victory gardens of World War II. It's been our companion for a long, long time. But here's the big question, right? Is the marigold a legitimate garden superhero? A tiny floral guardian for our vegetables? Or is all that power just an old gardener's tale, something passed down from one generation to the next? Well, today, we're going to separate the solid science from the superstition.
And first, let's just appreciate its history. The marigold's journey is pretty incredible. We're talking 2,000 years ago, cultivated by the Aztecs, they called it Sempoal chochit. Then in the 16th century, Spanish conquistadors brought it over to Europe. And get this, it eventually made its way back to North America, becoming this big deal in the victory gardens of the 1940s. A true world traveler.
Okay, so our investigation starts where you can't see it, in the war happening right under our feet. This is really where the marigold's reputation as a garden protector was born. The number one enemy down there? Plant parasitic nematodes. These things are microscopic little roundworms, and they are a complete nightmare for your garden. They attack the roots of your plants, they form these ugly growths called galls, and those galls literally just choke the plant, blocking it from getting the water and nutrients it needs to live. So how in the world does a flower fight back against that? Well, it has a secret weapon, a biochemical compound called alpha-terthionyl. The marigold's roots release this stuff into the soil, and it's basically a natural nerve gas for nematodes. It is absolutely toxic to them. And this isn't just folklore, you guys. This is proven biochemistry. But, and this is a big but, here's the first myth we have to bust. The science is really clear on this. Research from the University of California puts it plainly. Just popping a single marigold next to your tomato plant? Yeah, that's not going to cut it. The protection you get is, and I'm quoting here, negligible.
So if you want to make this actually work, you need a strategy. The most effective method is what's called a green manure. First, you have to plant a really dense patch of marigolds where you're planning to put your vegetables later. You let them grow for at least 2 months, maybe 4. And then, and this is the most important part, you till the entire plant right back into the soil. That's what unleashes the full chemical arsenal, effectively cleaning house for your next crop.
All right, we've covered the war in the soil. Now let's move above ground, into the air, where the marigold wages a totally different kind of battle using its famous scent.
You know, a study from Newcastle University had the perfect way to describe this. They said that marigolds create an invisibility cloak for plants like tomatoes, hiding them from pests flying around, like the dreaded whitefly. So how does it pull off this magic trick? The secret agent here is another chemical, a volatile organic compound called limonene. It's a huge part of that strong, pungent smell that marigolds have. See, whiteflies find your tomatoes by sniffing out their specific scent. But the limonene from the marigolds just floods the air. It totally masks the tomato smell, and it just confuses the heck out of the pests so they can't find their lunch. But, you know, just like with the nematodes, this invisibility cloak has some rules if you want it to work. Rule number 1, you gotta be proactive. Plant the marigolds with your tomatoes or even a little before. Rule 2, context matters. It's way more effective in an enclosed space like a greenhouse where that scent can really build up. And rule 3, you need enough of them. The goal is at least 1 marigold for every 2 tomato plants to get that full-on confusion effect.
Okay, so now things get even more complicated, and honestly, even cooler. The marigold isn't just a chemical warrior. It's a diplomat, a bodyguard, and sometimes it's even a bit of a saboteur. Let's get into this complex alliance.
One of its cleverest roles is as a trap crop. It turns out some pests, like slugs and Japanese beetles, actually prefer marigolds over your vegetables. So you can plant a sacrificial ring of them around, say, your prize-winning lettuce. The pests get distracted, they go for the marigolds, and they leave your main crop alone. It also makes them way easier to find and get rid of.
And it's not just about defense. Marigolds are amazing at recruiting the good guys. Their flowers are basically a buffet of nectar and pollen for beneficial insects. They bring in hoverflies, whose babies devour aphids. They attract ladybugs that hunt down mites, and parasitic wasps that take care of all those munching caterpillars. You're basically building a habitat for your own personal, all-natural pest control squad. But here's the plot twist. Remember that chemical, alpha-terthionyl, that kills the nematodes? Well, it also happens to be toxic to the growth of legumes. That's right. If you plant your marigolds too close to beans or peas, those same protective root chemicals will actually stunt their growth. It's a perfect reminder that in the garden, it's all about biochemistry. Okay, We have covered a ton of science. So now, let's put it all together. Let's turn all this theory into a practical, strategic plan that you can actually use in your own garden.
First things first, you have to know your marigolds, because they are not all created equal. The tall African marigolds, they're your best bet for trap crops. The smaller, bushier French marigolds, those are the powerhouses for nematode control. And then you have the delicate little cygnet marigolds. They're the champs for attracting beneficial insects. And hey, bonus points, their flowers are actually edible.
And we can get even more specific. If you're serious about fighting nematodes, research shows the single gold variety is one of the absolute best. Need a sacrificial trap for those Japanese beetles? Plant crackerjack. Want to build up that army of beneficial bugs? Lemon gem is your go-to. Choosing the right variety is just like choosing the right tool for the job.
And finally, remember to adapt all of this to your specific climate. In the deep south, for example, nematode pressure is a huge deal, so you're going to want heat-tolerant varieties. But up in the cooler, wetter Pacific Northwest, your biggest risk might be fungal disease, so you'll want to prioritize good air circulation around your plants. So, what's the bottom line here? It's this. The marigold is not a magical amulet. You can't just stick it in the ground and expect it to ward off evil. It is a sophisticated biochemical tool. Its power comes from specific chemical compounds that require a specific strategy to actually work. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you know the science behind the folklore, how are you going to use your marigolds? Will you just see them as pretty flowers? Or will you deploy them as a strategic, hard-working part of your garden's entire ecosystem?